Brought to you by Penguin.
The Trial by Franz Kafka. Read by Kobna Holdbrook-Smith. Introduction. I was not at all curious about who she was, but rather took her for granted at once. Bony, empty face that wore its emptiness openly, bare throat, a blouse thrown on, looked very domestic. This was Kafka's first sight of Felice Bauer, at the home of his friend Max Brod in Prague on the 13th of August 1912. In spite of his lack of curiosity, he ends the diary entry on a curious note. As I was taking my seat, I looked at her closely for the first time. By the time I was seated, I already had an unshakable opinion. Kafka in fact uses the word Urteil, which means judgment. We are not told what the judgment was, but over the next 2 years the relationship between Kafka and Felice developed to form an important impulse for The Trial, his novel about a man who is always awaiting judgment. Even the blouse appears a mute witness in the first chapter. When they met, Felice was 24, he was 29. Kafka must have come to Brod's that evening with a rare feeling of confidence. He had brought with him the manuscript of his first book, which he wanted to discuss with his friend. Because Felice was there, she was perhaps merged into this confidence, and had, for Kafka, characteristics always associated with a happy and productive occasion. Certain favorable events which followed for Kafka, as a writer, confirmed her attraction for him. They did not meet again for 7.5 months. About 5 weeks after the evening at Brod's, Kafka wrote to her, she lived in Berlin, introducing myself once more, my name is Franz Kafka. 2 nights after sending this letter, he experienced for the first time a longed-for release as a creative writer. At one sitting, which lasted from 10 at night until 6 in the morning, he produced what seemed to him his own form and vital utterance. He wrote a complete, concise story. In the morning after this night of creation, he noted in his diary, "How everything can be said, how for everything, for the strangest fancies, there waits a great fire in which they perish and rise up again." Of course, he means transformation, rising as a phoenix from the flames. This night gave him both assurance and fear typical of the tension which dogged him through life, and was the stuff of those strangest fancies he wanted to transform into art. The creative burst proved that in the right circumstances he could shape his own reality into literary form. Allied to this was fear that unspecified forces might compromise the purity of his effort. Only in this way can writing be done. Only with such coherence, with such a complete opening out of the body and the soul. For Kafka, the only viable condition was that which encouraged transformation of self into literature. Nothing must disturb productive coherence. That he had managed to achieve this coherence, if only for a few hours, must have been connected in his mind with Felice Bauer. He called his story The Judgment, a title which seems to spring naturally from the description of his first meeting with Felice. When it was published in the following year, it appeared with the dedication, For Fräulein Felice B. In the 2 months following his first letter to Felice, this normally despairing and hesitant writer found unusual fluency. He completed 6 chapters of the novel later known as America, and achieved, as a bonus, that extraordinary invention, The Metamorphosis, about a man who wakes up to find he has become an insect, not the only Kafka hero to wake into a nightmare. This story has been described by a respected commentator as one of the few great and perfect works of poetic imagination written during this century. Felice had done something for Kafka. Perhaps her greatest contribution was that she did not see him again for so many months. The relationship as it developed was largely a product of his imagination. As a
Sample complete. Ready to continue?